All right. I have 11:30 Central, 12:30 Eastern, which I think means it's time to get this thing rolling. All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the second part in a three-part installment, and maybe more, called The Nerdy 30. All right. Before I introduce our esteemed guests today, I have some context on the series, and I covered this last week, but if you weren't here, I'll cover it again. After I intro our guests, I'm going to put a timer on screen counting down from 30 minutes. At the end of 30 minutes, an alarm will go off. And at that point, the discussion is over. So a 30-minute cap. All right. If we get done earlier, that's great. But 30 minutes is as long as we're going to go. And anything that's left to be said will either be recapped in a blog or held in an additional session if there's enough demand. And by the way, if anyone has any questions or thoughts along the way, pop your questions into the comments, and if it's warranted, we may loop around at the end with some Q&A time, or we'll cover those in an additional blog as well. Like I mentioned, this is our second installment in our series. Our first installment was last week. If you had a chance to watch this one, you were in for a treat. This session was amazing. With Rusty Newton, he talked all about how to study and ace certification exams. Frankly, it was just about learning how to learn, and it was super fascinating. So highly recommend going to check that out. I'm going to pop the link into the comments here in a second. Next week at this exact same time, we have another session on how AI can help overcome cyber burnout. It's going to be a super practical session, bridging sort of where we are today to where we could be tomorrow and what that looks like. We're going to be there with Jason Rebholt, CEO and co-founder of Evoke Security, and a special guest, Joe Marchetti, the Vice President of Cybersecurity from the CoStar Group, is going to be joining us as well for that session. Again, if you're interested in either of those sessions, let me pop these links into the comments here. Right there, you can check them out. Just click on those links that I just popped into the comments. If you're watching this on demand, just look around the video. It'll be in the description or somewhere around there. So let's see. One more thing that I wanted to cover real quick. Obviously, today we're talking about SOC efficiency and SOC metrics. We at Expel actually recently developed a SOC metrics calculator. If you're interested in downloading that, let me show you what that looks like. Essentially, what you're able to do with this calculator is you can input various metrics here within this input pane right here. And then it spits out monthly tracking for you. It spits out SOC KPIs for you and gives you a printable KPI scorecard. Really interesting piece that our team recently developed. You should go check that out. And if you're interested in that, I'm going to pop that link into the comments as well, so that you can see that. Let me throw this over here. There we go. All right. So with all of that said, I am going to invite in our guests and give some intros. So here comes our esteemed guests. Let me invite them in. There's Ben and there's Ray. Hello, Ben and Ray.
Hey, how you doing?
Welcome in. I am joined this morning by this dynamic duo of studly gentlemen from our SOC team, both repeat offenders of the LinkedIn Lives. You may remember them if you watched our Forrester Wave session. If you didn't watch that, you can check that out on demand as well. I'm going to start with Ray. So Ray Pugh III is currently Senior Director of SOC Operations here at Expel, which covers our always-on 24/7 operations. Ray has been with Expel for 7 years, and during that time, he's been in various operational roles from our MDR, phishing, threat hunting, vulnerability prioritization. Ray has touched it all. Ray, welcome. Glad to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
And last but not least, here we have Ben Brigida, who is also Senior Director within the SOC. He's the Senior Director of SOC Support Operations at Expel, which encompasses threat intelligence, detection operations, threat hunting, and vulnerability intelligence. Fun fact, he was employee number 9 at the company. He's been with Expel for 8 years and has been a part of every service line launched the company. Prior to Expel, he did some work at Mandiant as a managed defense SOC analyst. And also, just to remind everyone here, according to Ben, he is the true Ben B, the only Ben B. All other Ben Bs are usurpers to the title. Again, I feel like he would want me to remind everyone that that's true. So, Ben, welcome.
Correct. Yep. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, you're welcome, Ben. All right, so let's get this thing rolling. I'm going to throw the timer on screen, and we're just going to dive right in. Here we go. All right. Oh, that's a big timer. I'm actually going to put it up here. There we go. All right. So everybody knows that measuring a SOC is not easy. So we're just going to come off the top rope, baby, and dive right in. But we're going to start super high level. And Ray, I'm going to go to you with this one, and then obviously Ben, chime in, and the magic's in the crosstalk, if you will. But Ray, if someone's looking at measuring their SOC, what kinds of data should these folks be paying attention to? Where do they go to find this kind of data?
Let's see. So I guess my answer would vary a little bit depending on like where you are in the metrics journey. But I think measuring outcomes that you feel like are important and inform whether your team is being successful, efficient, producing high quality results is what should guide you. But recognizing that it's not always feasible to measure the things that you want to. You want to start with, these are the things I want to measure, but if they're not currently feasible, you want to start small and have those incremental wins. I think that momentum is important. Start with what you can, measure it, trend it over time, and there will be learnings from just that initial subset if you're limited in what you're able to capture and measure.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah, and I think, the industry standard things are mean time to detect, mean time to respond. We also track work time and, the time to decision, as well as time to triage. It's a bunch of jargon, which basically means how long does it take somebody to look at something? How long does it take somebody to make a call if it's bad or not? And then how long does it take for us to start actually taking action? And then we track work time so that we can calculate capacity. Because one of the core beliefs that we have is, this is a decision job. Every you're making thousands of decisions a day when you're in the SOC, and there's such a thing as decision fatigue, and you can't just ask the team to work harder. You have to actually be aware of how much work they're doing, and you can't overload them, otherwise their decision quality goes down precipitously. So we use something like, a rough way of thinking of this is there's something called the Butt curve or the Kingman equation, where past about 70% loading, the work time goes up, the quality of decision goes down. And so we also track capacity and how long people are actually working on things, so that we can also identify ways to improve through automation.
So what I'm hearing is there are a lot of metrics to consider when trying to analyze a SOC, but there shouldn't necessarily be analysis paralysis. It's sort of a crawl, walk, run situation. Measure what you can now, and
Right.
then move towards what you aspire to measure in the future. Is that a fair analysis there?
To Ray's point, focus on the outcomes that you want to achieve. Also, the stuff that we just talked about are what we consider like the basics, the fundamentals, and really the industry standard. If you're building out a SOC metrics program, they're probably going to expect you to track these. But we found a lot of the real value comes from inspecting, more nuanced parts of this. A SOC is a team sport, and so there's a lot of variables that go into play here. So it's not all just about metrics either. There's also the eye test that you really have to pay attention to and map up if the metrics that you're seeing about assessing your program overall and the individuals in it line up with the reality that you've seen.
Yeah, I think that point is a really important one, which is be opinionated and have theories or hypotheses, but be very eager and ready to change your mind if the data shows differently than how you would have expected. But getting into the data and getting your hands dirty is where the learning happens. And it's a journey. It's not, you check the box, my metrics are perfect. It's a constant iterative thing.
Yeah, for sure. So it sounds like any one piece of data shouldn't be seen in isolation. It's sort of just like when investigating a security incident, right? You're trying to take in as much context as you can to give you a more full picture. Is that a fair assumption as well? And like, do you have any examples maybe of times where if you looked at a data point in isolation, maybe it wasn't telling the story you wanted it to?
Yeah, I feel like we both probably have dozens. One that springs right to mind is we had an analyst, one of our best analysts, was the opinion at the time, and was a leading the shift. And when we pulled individual metrics, we don't publish these because anytime a metric becomes a target, it changes behavior. But when we were looking internally and inspecting, we saw that this person's incidents that this person worked took longer than everybody else's. And so at the surface, that seems like maybe they aren't as good as we thought. And when we actually dug into the data, what we found is that they were declaring these incidents from low severity alerts within 10 minutes of starting their shift. And what this says is they're actually plucking out the bad things really quickly. But if we would have just reacted off of the, some scoreboard with everybody's MTTR on it, we would have assessed the person differently. So anytime that you look at some individual metric like that, you really have to inspect the data and understand all the other variables at play.
Absolutely. I can think of another example where it was similar, very, very strong analyst, well respected by everybody. But if you were to look at just their total alerts worked in isolation, it would be misleading. Be like, why was it so low? It was a similar but slightly different reason to the analyst Ben was speaking to, which is they were the first to arrive at the scene of the crime for incidents. They worked the most incidents by a mile. That can also come into play whenever we see people. There are things that fall outside of the spreadsheet, like this person is mentoring and training other analysts. So they're not working things themselves, but they're helping other people learn. So you have to take those less tangible things outside of the data and consider them as part of the bigger picture, which is why we don't have hard and fast, you must close this many alerts and that type of thing, because that's where the thought diversity, the diversity in skill sets and experiences, the collective team accomplishes the goal, but each person's contributions to it are different.
Yeah, for sure. So are you taking the kind of hard data that you have maybe around, mean time to detect and respond, remediate, et cetera, and cross-referencing that with just conversations with your SOC team? Like what kind of data are you pulling in to help build out these more full pictures?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a common trap that some may fall into, is the data is the gospel and it's the only source of truth. One thing that we've found success in is, our SOC managers, we limit the number of direct reports they have so they can spend an appreciable amount of time with every single analyst individually every week. And then in our part of what my role in that is creating the meetings and the topics of conversation we have them compare notes on the individual conversations they're having throughout the week. But generally, what are the more subjective things? Like, what's the tone of the team? What's the general sentiment? What are their pain points? What are they excited about? And constantly cross-referencing that with actual data that we're pulling to make sure it's telling an accurate story, and we're constantly tweaking things to try to make them representative.
And just to double down on the thing Ray said about the data is not the gospel, right? Like all metrics are a proxy to what's actually happening in the real world. And so if you don't trust them too much, we're really well instrumented. We have really solid data, but Ray and I also have worked here a long time and understand the limitations of the data and the gaps in that. And there's always going to be gaps. There's always going to be inference that you have to make. So don't trust the data too much. That means inspect it, challenge your assumptions. Sometime these two examples were people that we believed were good analysts, and it wound up, having explainable root causes. But you need to take that approach with everybody.
Yeah, that's helpful. Good conversation. A reminder, if anybody has any questions or anything like that, throw them in the chat. We would love to field those. We do have a comment. It says that prior to Expel, Ben Brigida was Batman. Can you confirm if that is true, Ben?
Yeah.
Are you allowed to confirm if that's true?
I wish my bank account looked like Batman's, but once upon a time I did research on bats, and Yeah, there was more than one time that we said to the Batmobile or to the Batcave.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. So you were literally Batman, not Bruce Wayne. Fair enough. Interesting. Maybe another LinkedIn Live for another time digging into that. Love it. All right. Hey, so we talked at a high level about SOC operations. Let's kind of dig in a little bit and talk about the alert lifecycle. What does that journey look like, and where do you typically see bottlenecks? I'll just throw this one out there. Whoever wants to cover that one first, maybe Ray. Maybe if you want to step in and go for that one first.
Sure. Like basically it starts with, I don't know if we want to throw up, I think we have a graphic that might be helpful, but essentially
is it this one? Oh, hang on. Let me see. Is it this one right here? Is this the one?
I think we had one other for just the more general alert life cycle. Yeah. So like from an analyst perspective, it's starting with the triage phase, meaning these are alerts that hit the queue and they're getting fresh eyes on them. They're making that evaluation, which is essentially, is it bad or is it not bad? And then that triggers different workflows. Sometimes that moves directly to an incident because it's clear. Sometimes it results in, I don't have what I need to make a confident decision. So I need to perform a deeper investigation, meaning I need to pull additional data. I need a mechanism for documenting my steps and logging my evaluations of the data and what decisions I made based on it. But essentially, this is just a visual depiction of the workflows, which are the outcomes are it's not bad, which is most things in general by a percentage are not malicious, but they are alerts that we triage to make sure. Sometimes it's somewhere in that middle space where it's not overtly malicious. It may represent some level of risk. It may require more customer environment specific context in order to determine whether it's supposed to be happening or not, or it's clearly malicious and it triggers our incident handling. And when you ask about bottlenecks, I think in maybe a bit of a generalization, but there's some form of limitation to the amount of actual malicious activity, hopefully that's happening in a certain customer environment. It's our job to detect it and respond to it quickly. But I think one of the industry norms and, makes it challenging to monitor so many different assets is vendor alerts are tremendously good at generating tons and tons of alerts, but sifting through them and finding the highest value things is a constant iterative process that we, on a daily, hourly basis are constantly tweaking.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Ben?
No. This is another thing where good instrumentation is really helpful because you can see specific steps that bog things down and then find some solution. A lot of times the analysts are good at analysis and are able to identify a good solution. But sometimes there are trends that like you can see from a higher level if you look at it and say, okay, we can knock out this entire subset if we do this change.
Absolutely. And I think it ties back to Ben's earlier point too about we talked about the work time metric. We're able to get really granular with that and see not just spend on alerts, investigations, or incidents. Yes, we slice it that way, but we also dig into how much time do they spend triaging this specific type of alert and break it down by different environments. Was something outside of baseline? How much time investigating? Our incidents on certain types of activity, are they taking longer? And are there opportunities to improve efficiency? Because we view it as the expectations of analysts with eyes on glass is their job is to be thorough, accurate, and correct in their decision making. We never, ever say work faster because if you want something handled in a certain amount of time, they're going to hit it, but you're going to see quality diminish. So the efficiency component is my job, Ben's job, all of our SOC managers, all of our counterparts on sister teams. How do we, through a combination of people, process, and technology, improve both quality and efficiency and use the data to inform where we focus that prioritization?
Yeah, there's a really good series of books and whatnot by a gentleman named Deming that basically talks about, a bad system beats a good analyst or a good person every time. And so we're going to talk a bit more about the quality and how we measure accuracy and quality in a minute. But a lot of that has to do with, we view that as a system level thing. If we give the people the time to do quality work and we give them training, then that's ops management's job not the analyst's job to manage.
Yeah, shout out to Adam here for being the first in the comments with a question. To Ben's point, we are going to dedicate a fair amount of time here at the end to talking about how we measure quality, in an industry where a lot of times we're held to numbers like speed, right? How do you measure those two things? Both important, but you can't sacrifice one for the other. How do leading indicators like alert volume or volatility shape downstream metrics like cycle time based on your experience?
Well, if you're not managing it effectively, there's going to be a spike of alerts that come in, and then you're going to tell everybody work harder, and they're going to, cut corners to work the queue down to zero, which doesn't help anybody. How we think about it is we need to have people on hand that we can pull in, so that we can handle the increase in volume with additional throughput, not with just telling people work harder. So that's the key. There is be aware of your available capacity, be aware of the seasonality, and then prepare for spikes anyway, because cybersecurity, this stuff doesn't happen. Like we don't get to set the tempo, the attackers do.
Absolutely. And then when it comes to something like, I'm sure many people listening have seen the story before, which is vendor pushes a SIG that actually blows up and alerts on everything. It's alerting on a file hash for a browser or something like that. And so having the right levers to pull quickly to diagnose this is what's arriving, making the queue volatile, and being able to, with technology, also address it if that's what it is. If it's something that needs manual action, being able to pull in additional resources to do it quickly and having those processes set up ahead of time, because when it's happening, it's too late to make a plan. Having the plan ahead of time is an important aspect.
Absolutely. Planning to scale effectively. I feel like you guys have already mentioned this on our list of questions here. My next question is, how do we think about SOC operations management? I feel like we've covered that in a lot of our conversation thus far. Is there anything else that you guys can think of that you want to hit in terms of how we think about SOC operations management? I know we're about to pivot into the quality and efficiency, conversation, but anything else pertaining to what we just talked about in terms of how we look at SOC operations?
I think I would just maybe double down on, because I know we've covered a lot so far, double down on some of the things which are like favor iterative improvement over having a perfect plan, being opinionated and having hypotheses, but get really deep into the data and validate and be very willing to change your mind if the data appears different than how you would expect. And overall, we use it as not, like we talked about, it is one of the tools in our toolkit. It is not the only tool. So keeping a broader awareness as you're using it in support of your daily operations.
And it's inherently incomplete. So understand the gaps.
Yeah, good. All right, so let's pivot and hit on what we teased, 7 minutes or so ago. There's a lot of focus in our industry on speed. We've already talked about it. Even Expel, you go to our site and, we boast our mean time to remediate numbers, 17 minutes, I think we're up to now, which is great. Obviously, speed is important. Every second counts in cybersecurity. But how can teams make sure that they're not sacrificing quality for the sake of efficiency? When you guys think about that, what's your thought process on that front?
Well, it's hard to measure quality, like to quantitatively measure a qualitative stat. How we've approached it is to raise point. We're opinionated about what good looks like. So we define that. And then we define that as a rubric, and then we'll score things. This is something where we found good success internally with AI tools. Like they work really well with a rubric and, hey, does it match this? Does it adhere to these criteria, and scoring things out for us so that we can do sampling, 100% sampling instead of, what we've historically done is random sampling for quality control checks. But basically, it boils down to have an opinion about what good looks like. You can't hold somebody accountable to something you never told them. So communicate that to them in training, give them the space to do that work, and then inspect it after the fact and actually compare it to what you've set as the standard. And if it doesn't meet the standard, then once upon a time, expand the aperture for what you're sampling. But today, more and more, you're able to sample 100%.
And I think to his last point, I think another like something that I want to emphasize too is that feedback loop of, say you have things defined, you have rubrics, you're doing the sampling, you need to make sure that feedback loop is making it back to the people actually doing the work. Because if you're just inspecting it off to the side and you're not deriving any action from it, then what is that work really for? And that gets a little bit more philosophical, because it comes down to having a culture, which we think is one of the really important things about what's made us successful, if not the thing, is having an environment where you can have these open, honest conversations as a team. Because if people aren't perfect. If they did make a mistake, they need to be able to own it, learn from it, improve, and help other people learn. But a lot of times it's, what can we do to make the team more successful, and provide requirements to other teams on technological or product-based solutions. So kind of it boils down to that people, process, and technology thing. The outputs of that inspection should drive some form of action.
And then, so that's for quality. And then when it's measuring like the accuracy of our work, there's true positive rate. There's also false negative rate. How many things do we close incorrectly? The other thing that we track is how many, not just alerts, it's alerts that we closed incorrectly and then added. It's not just alerts that led to a total miss of an incident, but sometimes, it's slightly later in the life cycle that we realize, oh shoot, this was actually related, and then we add that. How can we make that more apparent? So we track those situations where something's determination changed. In addition to that, we perform detection gap analyses, where like this is really, I think, the key of any detection program, is that the attackers are giving you the answers to the test based off of what they've just done. And so you have to pull all of that apart and say, hey, here are the places where we made the right decision. Here are the places we made the wrong decision, but also here are the places that we detected what they were doing, and here's where we could have detected it. And so the way that we think about this is, how many unique decisions go into each incident that we work. If it's a single incident, or a single alert for that incident, especially depending on life stage, where you are in the life cycle, one alert is a near miss to us. If you catch an incident with one alert, we need to trigger that review in order to make sure that people are not going to be 100% accurate when it comes to closing alerts. And that's a bad goal to set, especially when you have really talented attackers on the other end, which we do. And so if we're only giving somebody one decision to make the right call, we've set them up to fail, and we've set the companies up to that we protect, or an individual company, if you're building it for yourself, up to fail as well. And so we need to have as many detections as we can possibly have, give us as many at bats to make the right decision to catch these attackers, track how often we make the right decisions, and then figure out why we didn't make the right decisions in the cases that we didn't, and how we can use automation to provide the right data so that we make the right decision the next time.
That's great. Just this kind of going off script here, but you talked about fostering a culture. Now, obviously, we're here on this call to talk about measuring a SOC and SOC efficiency. That's kind of on the back end, right? But feeding into that, obviously, is the culture that you cultivate within a SOC to become more efficient, to drive those numbers. You both have been heavily involved in fostering the culture of the SOC that we have at Expel. What are the keys to developing a really strong culture that performs well, but also, again, keeps customer outcomes front and center in kind of everything they do? What's your philosophy when it comes to that? Without giving away all of how the sausage is made, what's your philosophy there?
It's easy to say, it's hard to do. So I think Ray, and interrupt me or correct me if I'm wrong, but it is teamwork really is what makes the dream work. And we have a real enemy on the other side of this. Before I got into cybersecurity, I didn't understand how terrifying the SOC job was. It's a much more emotionally challenging job than I think I gave it credit for. I thought it was a highly technical job, but it's scary. And so the culture that we talk about is one where like you have to work together to find these things and be comfortable asking for help. You have to know when you need to ask for help. And we think that there's a momentum to saying, I don't know, where if you say it a lot, it's easy. And if you don't say it a lot, it's really hard. And so, getting people to say, I don't know, or I was wrong, talking about your misses and getting better, because attackers are very competent. They're incredibly competent. And so if we try and if we unintentionally build a culture where people, protect their ego, we're going to fail and we're going to get beat.
Absolutely. And I think plugging into that, creating that environment that operates in the way that Ben described on the front end of it, is selecting the people that we bring onto the team. Something that we found, it doesn't matter, metrics, data. I haven't found an approach where you can change who someone is as a person, as a human being. So we put a lot of time and attention. Obviously, there are, depending on the role, varying levels of technical experience and knowledge that you need coming in, but we put even more emphasis on traits like, as Ben describes, open and honest. Like, we want to look for candor and like, have you made mistakes? Did you own up to them? Did you fix them? That type of thing. Having a passion for helping other people, whether it's your fellow teammates, as well as we think of ourselves as an extension of the customer teams. Do you want to help the customers? Do you get energy out of helping people? Is that one of the things that drives you? Do you seek out knowledge, learning and growth? Is that something that is a passion of yours? And just passion and energy in general, as Ben described, it's a stressful job. So making sure that we're bringing folks on the team that will work together as a collective unit. We approach that very seriously with a lot of intention. And I think that's been really important. But then obviously once they're here, we need to do everything within our control to make sure that environment is healthy and operating as it needs to.
I'm not in cybersecurity. I'm in marketing, but I know a fair amount about cybersecurity at this point. I've been in the industry for a little while, and if I know anything to be true, it's that it takes a special kind of person to be in a SOC. You have to be resilient. You have to be willing to play, and collaborate, and then also you need to be a lover of learning. I feel like cybersecurity, more than maybe any other industry, is one where you constantly have to be learning to stay ahead of real enemies. To your point, Ben, real enemies, right? So you are saying you're Batman, is what I'm hearing here. All right, go ahead, Ray.
Real quick, did you? I think it was an accidental pun, but he said "at bats" earlier. I don't know. Tie.
Yeah, I wish
I caught that.
We're gonna go with it. It was planned. It was planned. All right, final question here. Final question. I'm just gonna set up a scenario for you. All right. Strangely, you find yourself on an elevator with someone wearing a t-shirt that says, "Someone help me measure my security operations center." I don't know if you've ever been in this situation. I hear it happens often. But when you find yourself in that situation, you have 10 floors before that person steps off the elevator. What do each of you tell them? Maybe Ben, you came off mute first. You go first.
I'll go first. The first thing is I would talk about my philosophy for setting goals. If you measure what you're able to do and then set goals around that, you're going to fail. You have to set the goals around what must be accomplished and then figure out how to accomplish it. Constraints form the system. And so set the constraints on the quality of deliverable and then figure out how to measure that. Do not go into this saying that, well, we can close alerts in 5 hours, so that's going to be our target. No one's going to go for that, and they're going to find a replacement. So set the goal off of what good looks like, figure out how to achieve good.
That's a great answer.
That's a great answer. Just to add to it, I feel like I'm reiterating, but I feel passionate about it, which is just the constant iterative improvement. Start start incrementally. But I don't think it's something that you can ever perfect. At least in our opinion, we're never completely satisfied. We're always seeking ways to improve further because we feel like there's more out there. We're always learning more, and spend the time to get in the weeds and familiar with the data. It's time consuming, but that's where we've derived the most value. You know, I don't even know how many hours Ben and I have spent digging through various spreadsheets and stuff, but that's where I learned the most. So don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. But I think that's just a supplement to what Ben said, which is if you have the right kind of goalposts or aspirations, then that's going to guide everything that you do in pursuit of that.
6 seconds left. We did it. We did it. That's great. Good job, guys. Oh, man.
Game over.
Game over. All right. Oh, gosh. It said
Over.
wow, it's still doing it.
That's awesome.
Sorry, my own personal timer is going off too. All right. Yeah. Hey, guys. Thanks so much. This was super helpful. So to boil it all down, it sounds like don't wait for the perfect plan. Get started today, but set goals for the future that push you and hire the right people along the way. So anyways, Ben, Ray, appreciate you. Glad that you are at the helm of our SOC. We are in good hands. If anybody's interested in hearing more about what we do at Expel, go to expel.com and get in touch with us. You know, we'd love to have a conversation with you about how we do MDR differently and how our SOC can help keep you safe. And they keep lots of people safe every single day. So Ben and Ray, thanks a lot. I'm going to end the live stream because the Nerdy 30 has come and gone. And I think we kept it sufficiently nerdy. So appreciate you guys.
All right. Thank you.
All right. See everyone. Tune in next week.